Hi everyone, it's Christine here from Ever After Paper Crafts, and I decided, since I still had this adorable Summer Friends stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh still sitting on my desk. If you'll recall, I did a video using some of these adorable images a couple days ago, and I still had the stamp set sitting on my desk, so I decided I just had to make another card. This one is a very, very simple little card that I have made. It simply says Happy Summer, and it's got this fun little girl with her little unicorn, I guess you call it a floaty or something like that, and a beach ball. And I did some distress watercoloring, which is the technique I'm going to go over today. And we'll do some zig coloring as well. I hope that you can see on video. It will definitely show up in the pictures that'll be on my blog, and I will have a link to my blog in the description box of this video below. But I put a lot of Wink of Stella glitter on these images, and then I coated, after that was dry, a bunch of glossy accents on the floaty and the beach ball to give it a shiny, shimmery look. So just some fun extras that really make a simple card kind of pop. So let's go ahead and get started. The very first thing that I did was I created my background with the distress watercoloring. And first I cut out a rectangle with some stitched rectangle dies, and I just happened to use a rectangle from Lawn Fawn, which is the largest rectangle from the small rectangle stitched die set. But you can use any rectangle die that you have in your stash, or just simply cut a rectangle down to size using your paper trimmer. That would work just as well. Now, what I'm going to do is, usually when I do any type of watercoloring, I like to tape the image down on a board, but I'm going to be doing such minimal watercoloring that I'm just going to set it on the board and just kind of, you'll see what I mean in a minute. You really don't need to tape it down for such minimal watercoloring. Before we do that, however, I have to get my quote-unquote palette set up. And what I mean by that is I'm going to be using 3 distress inks today to do my watercoloring. I'm going to be using Spun Sugar, Picked Raspberry, and Mustard Seed. And we need to transfer these inks to a very slick surface that we can use as a palette. Now, some people have simply laminated a piece of white cardstock with a laminator and use that, and that works great. You can use a craft mat if you have a craft mat for such a thing, or you can use an actual palette. I think American Crafts sells them very inexpensive. But what I do is I have saved the acetate packaging that all of my stamp sets or stencils or die cuts come in. I save them all, and I use them for this very technique. And all you need to do is, and it's going to be a little hard to see, let me see if I can put a piece of white cardstock underneath. I'll just use my card base for just a moment so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So as you can see, this is just a clear packaging material, the leftover packaging material from a stamp set. I'm going to take my little cube here, this is the Spun Sugar, and just really get that ink on this acetate packaging. And it's hard to see because the Spun Sugar is so light, but you'll see what I mean in a moment when I do the Picked Raspberry, which is darker. I'm now going to take the Picked Raspberry, put it on a corner of the packaging, my palette, if you will, and finally the Mustard Seed, and we'll just put it down here. So as you can see, and I'll pull this up to the camera, so now I have 3 different spots of ink, distress ink, that I've put down on this makeshift palette. So now I'm just going to put this aside and bring over my little piece of cardstock. Now let's see how best to get this in the camera here. Let's do it this way. Okay, finally I have a cup of water here and a small paintbrush. You can use any type of paintbrush that you have. You really don't need a special watercolor brush or anything like that for this technique. So I have my cup of water here, and what I'm going to do is get the paintbrush nice and wet, and then I'm going to start with the Picked Raspberry. And I'm going to be doing this off camera, but at first I will show you what I'm doing. I simply bring my wet paintbrush over and rub it in the distress ink that we've laid down on this palette, and you can see it getting nice and watery there. So you just kind of load your paintbrush up with the ink. I'm going to set the little palette aside, and I'm just going to glob it down just in little droplets here. Just kind of thump my paintbrush down onto my watercolor cardstock. And by the way, this rectangle was cut out of Canson XL watercolor paper. So I'm just kind of globbing it down, and I'm going to take my heat gun and quickly dry it. And I'm going to put another layer on top. And again, this is the picked raspberry that I've just put the ink on a little acetate palette, makeshift palette that I've created. And I'm just getting it nice and wet with a paintbrush and then just kind of glopping it down onto this paper. And I'm going to go ahead and dry it again. And you really want to chase those water droplets around with your heat gun because it's going to create a really fun look. Sometimes pick your paper up, just really get it to move a little bit and it will create a super fun look. Now I'm going to take a clean paintbrush and just kind of wet the areas around it. Just a little bit, just to get it to the ink to move when we apply it to the paper. Now I'm going to reach into my mustard seed with my paintbrush where I've put that ink down and get my brush kind of coated with it and then just, again, plop that ink down. No magic to how I'm putting the ink down on my paper. I'm quite literally just thumping it down, not hard, you know, softly, but I'm thumping it down onto my watercolor paper. And again, I want to chase those droplets down because with the distress ink, it's going to give it a really fun look. And I wanted to show you guys this technique. I often use watercolors, regular watercolor paints in my videos, but I want to show you the different fun look that you also can get doing it with distress inks. Already you can see how kind of gloppy and you have like darker shades here and lighter over here and you have these gloppy kind of blobs that really are fun in my opinion. And you don't really get that with watercolors as dramatically as you do with the distress ink simply because of the properties of the distress ink and how they react with water. So it's just a fun, different kind of look to everything. Now I'm getting my paintbrush into that light pink, the spun sugar. And this is so light that it's a very subtle look. But I'm going to plop that down onto my cardstock here. And again, it's so light, but it's very pretty. I'm going to dry it quickly. Chase those water droplets around with your heat tool. And it's just so fun. I really love this look, and I'm going to be doing this a lot more on my cards. It's a lot less work than watercoloring, and you just get a fun, super simple look. I'm just kind of going to go in now with and go back over the paint, the colors again. So I just did the picked raspberry. Now I'm going back over with the mustard seed, and then finally I'm going to go back over again with the spun sugar. Now because it's so light, I'm actually going to open the ink pad up again and put a little bit more on my palette because it's such a light color. You find that you'll use the light colors up a lot quicker. So I'm coming back in now with my wet paintbrush and just globbing on a little bit more of that spun sugar. And I'm going to go back in again. Again, just because it's light, I have to work a little bit harder on that spun sugar. And we're going to dry this one more time. And it's so much fun to chase these water droplets. That's my favorite part, I think. It's super fun. And you just get these really fun looks. And so there you have it, guys. So in less than about 5 minutes, we have created a super fun watercolor background with our distress inks. It's just super, super fun. And I'm going to pull this up to the camera now so you can really get a good look at it. How fun is that? It just gives this gloopy watercolor look. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So I'm going to put the board aside now. And you really don't need that board. I just kind of did it so the ink didn't get all over my workstation. But again, you really don't need to tape it down for this because you're not putting a whole lot of water or ink/paint down. My palette, I only use these once. That's really, I haven't found a way to save them. And since they are just packaging, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it away. I suppose you probably could just rinse it off and keep using it. I don't think that that would be a problem. But I have so many that for me, I'm just going to go ahead and throw this one away. And now we can get to creating the rest of our card. I'm going to set this up to the side to just, it's pretty dry from my heat gun, but we'll just let it finish drying while we work on coloring our cute little images. So for this card, I just kept it simple and I just colored 2 of the images from the stamp set. I colored the little girl and the beach ball. So let me quickly go over that with you. Make sure, and I'm going to be coloring these, by the way, with my Zig markers and a water brush. So I will be watercolor painting these with the Zig markers and a water brush. I will call out the colors as I use them. I did not use very many to create this fun little image. And I did stamp the image onto Canson XL watercolor paper. I'm going to zoom in now so you can really see the coloring. And we're going to go ahead and get started. For her hair, I used brown and light brown for a fun little kind of almost like a dirty blonde look to her hair. I like to do brunette often. I happen to be brunette, so that seems to be the color that I reach for, but it's fun to mix it up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put the darker color, which is the brown, kind of where I feel that it's going to be the darkest, where the shading is going to be, and the shadows rather are going to be. And I'm kind of imagining that the sun is going to be hitting her straight on. She's at the beach and the sun's kind of right, you know, right above, and so it's hitting everything straight on. So I'm going to have my lightest part where the shading, where the sun rather is going to be hitting in the middle. So I'm going to come in now with my light brown. Hopefully that made sense, guys. I apologize if it didn't. Pop me a question or for anything. And that kind of goes for any of my videos. If you ever have any questions, email me or post a comment. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So now I'm going in with the light brown, which is the lighter color, and just blending it with the darker color, the brown that we already put down. Now I'm going to be using my Zig water brush to pull that color out into the white space that remains. And this will give us a beautiful, shadowy, highlighted look. And it really shows where the shadows and the darker sections are. And I just love the results that you get with these Zig markers. We're gonna now do the little ponytail. It's kind of gonna be darkest here and at the tip. Because again, I'm imagining that sun is hitting her head on. I'm gonna come in now with the light brown, pull that darker brown color out, and then use my water brush to pull it into the empty spaces. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side now. Take the brown and put it where we feel that, wherever you feel that it's going to be darkest, and then use the light brown, your lighter color, to pull this out. And of course you don't have to use two colors if you don't want to. I just really like the combination that these two colors give you. And when you use more than one color with the zigs, you really get three colors almost. It's quite lovely. And finally, we'll just be doing this little ponytail here. Use our light brown to pull out that color. And then we will use the water brush to pull everything together. And we're done. So easy peasy for that, for the hair. Now let's go ahead and do her shirt, her little bathing suit here, rather. It's probably not a shirt, it's probably a bathing suit. And I'm using pink for this. So I'm just gonna kind of scribble a line of color down where I feel the shadow is going to hit, where it's going to be the most shaded, the darkest part. And I just use one color for this, and I'm gonna use my water brush to pull that color out. The water also takes the line away of the color that you scribbled down. So it kind of serves two purposes. It takes that harsh line away and then blends out to create a lighter color in the middle. For the little unicorn floaty, I'm going to be using a light pink for that. So I'm going to grab my light pink marker. I feel like here by her hand there's going to be some shadow, and then up by her body, of course. Up around here, and then along the bottom as well, since again I'm imagining that sun is hitting her head on. We're now going to take our water brush and in a circular motion pull all that color out into the middle. The circular motion will help move the color, pull it out into the middle, and will also get rid of those lines that you scribbled on with the marker. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. So there's our little floaty. For the mane of the unicorn, I used orange and yellow. This is a really pretty combination with your zigs. You could just use one or the other if you wanted to. You absolutely don't have to blend them. But I like to use my zigs as if they're paints. They are watercolor markers, and so I like to pretend sometimes in my head that they're watercolor, you know, they're actual watercolor paints. I know that's silly, but I like to mix them and create new colors that aren't already in existence. And I just find combinations that I love. And this orange and yellow really creates just this golden, beautiful color. And I just love it. So I'm just using my water brush to blend those colors together and pull it out into the open space. And I'm going to use that same combo again on the little unicorn horn. And we'll pull this color up as well. And then use the water brush to finish everything. All right, so now all we have left to do in coloring our sweet little girl here is her skin tone. I use blush and flush color for Caucasian skin tone. I'm going to use the blush first, kind of go around her face, because the middle of her face is going to be lightest with where I have imagined the sun hitting. So I went with my blush first. Now I'm going to take the flesh color in a circular motion, blend out that blush color to get rid of that line and also blend the colors together. Do a little bit of work on the ear here, and then take my water brush and in a circular motion blend everything together. Very pretty. Also, I forgot to mention, but if you've watched any of my videos, you know I say this all the time, have a paper towel handy, and in between coloring of different colors, you want to scribble off the tip of your water brush so that there's no color coming off of it. I'm so sorry. I am not speaking eloquently today at all. Please forgive me. What I'm trying to say is after every time that you color, you want to scribble off the end of that water brush so that it is clear, so that no more color is coming off of it before you go to another color. It's very easy to do. Literally, you just scribble until no color is coming off. That's how you clean your water brush off. Now, you could also do this technique with a paintbrush and water, and then you would just clean your paintbrush in between colors by dipping it, you know, how you would normally if you were painting. Just dip it in the water and get it cleaned off. I'm just using the same color now to finish coloring the rest of her skin. I'm going in with the blush first, which is the darker of the two colors, and then I'm coming in with the flesh color, and then using the water brush to blend it all out. I have found, as you know, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, I alternate. I love using Bristol Smooth and Canson XL watercolor paper for coloring with my zigs. They're both great. I have found, however, when I use the watercolor paper, it's much thicker. So sometimes with lighter colors like these skin tones, I have to go in twice, just so it shows up and I'm able to actually see the distinctions between the shading, if that makes sense. So sometimes you might just have to go over it again, but that's a great thing with the zigs. Like Copic markers, if you're familiar with those at all, you can go back in with your zigs over the color you've already laid down and do it again. So now to finish this little image up, I would take my Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen, and I'm going to put glitter on her little swimsuit. Also, you want to scribble off the tip of your Wink of Stella pen as well in between colors, because it will pick up color. If you're going over water-based products. So I think it might even with Copics too. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it definitely does with the zig. So you want to clean that, scribble that tip of that water brush, or Wink of Stella brush rather, off in between colors. So that's not going to show up super well on camera. There you go, a little bit there. Really pretty effect. And then I would put glossy accents once that's dried over the floaty. Now I'm not going to color the beach ball just for time purposes, but I used the orange and yellow combo I just alternated orange and yellow and light pink, orange and yellow, light pink, orange and yellow, light pink. So very simple. And I will have a list of all of the colors that I used on my blog, which again, I will have a link to. And there you can see the glitter. I will have a link to my blog to finish that thought on the description box of the video below. So now, just to finish the card, all that I would do is I bring my card base over. This is just a normal, oops, let me zoom back out first so you guys can see what I'm doing. Hello. Okay, this is kind of a crazy video this morning. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'm kind of all over the place this morning, but I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, just regular size, A2 size note card. I took some scalloped rectangle die, which happens to be from Lawn Fawn, and I cut it in a really beautiful kind of goldish yellow cardstock color. It happens to be from Simon Says Stamps. So I layered that on top of the card base, then took the distressed watercolor panel that we created, kind of skewed it just a little bit and adhered it on. Before I did that, of course, I would have stamped my sentiment into the top left corner, and I just chose Happy Summer from the stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh. Then I, of course, cut out the little images. There are coordinating dies with this stamp set, or of course, if you don't have those, you can fussy cut. Put them on with foam tape onto the panel, and then added some sequins and a piece of pink twine, and that's it, guys. That easily we created this really pretty little card. It's very simple, but very fun, I think, and really fun and colorful, and it makes me think about summer. So I hope that you enjoyed this and that you'll give this distress watercolor painting a try. It is so easy, and I think the results are fun. So let me know if you give it a try. I'd love to see what you come up with. Thanks so much, guys, for stopping by, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.